Okay, this is the module of the driver's side of a 2003 Dodge Dakota. As you can see, these two switches here are for the mirrors. One is for the, you hit this side for the left, this side for the right, and then this is the mirror degree control. And this is the switch for the driver's side window and the switch for the passenger window, and this is the electric door locks. But before we start taking things apart, let's determine what the issue is. The first thing you need to know or find out is the unit getting power? Because if the unit's not getting power, maybe it's just a fuse. If these switches, any of these switches operate, the mirrors or the door locks or the windows, and there's only one window or possibly two windows that don't operate, that tells you that the module is getting power. And so you can rule out the faulty fuse. Secondly, there's something else that you can do that I didn't realize before I made this video. In my case, it was only the driver's side window that didn't operate, and the passenger side window didn't operate from the passenger control, but it did operate from the driver's side control, which is right here. And what that tells me is that the motor in the passenger side is okay, because it's getting power and it's reading the signal and it's raising and lowering the window from here, but it won't do it from the switch on the passenger side, which tells me that's a passenger side switch issue. So in my case, the driver's side window wouldn't go up or down, and when I hit the switch, I could hear it clicking. It would switch and I could barely hear a click. I didn't know this at the time I made this video, but I know it now that that clicking is a signal that the motor is overloaded, and it has a automatic breaker in there that prevents it from overloading to keep from burning the motor up. And so it's possible that in my case it was the motor and not the switch. But at the time I made the video, I didn't know this. So let's proceed. You can see from this photo that I'm lifting this module up off of this, where it lies on the door panel, and it's just held on there by double-sided switch. But you'll see me instructing you on how to disassemble the module so that you can clean these switches. And one thing you don't need to do is, when you go to take these switch covers off, this one, and this one, you don't need to take these two. You don't need to mess with those, because the cover comes right over the top and the module comes loose from the bottom. So you can just leave these the way they are. Don't bother trying to take those off. Okay, so this is a 2003 Dakota. This is the driver's side panel with the window controls. This is the auto lock, and this is for the mirror. This is only held in there by double-sided tape. You can see some here, and there's some that used to be right here. It's still sticky. First thing you need to do is disconnect the electrical connections. These are just plug-ins here and here. Okay, to get these connections out, there's a little tab on the inside here. It goes in like this. You see the white tab? Press in on that and it releases and makes you pull the whole thing out. Don't try to pry this white piece loose from the blue. You'll just run into a lot of problems. Just take it out like that. The same thing with this one. You have the little blue tab there, and it'll come out. Okay, once you've taken all 6 of these screws out. You can't take the bottom part out until we pop off these plastic pieces here. Okay, and you just pry up on them. Some of them are a little difficult, but they will come off. Be very careful. Okay, now that you've seen, I have taken the cover off. This is the bottom side, and there's the circuit board. It's very small, very simple, and these are the switches. Go back and forth. So we're going to talk about this in a minute. If you don't see any damage on this circuit board, and I don't see any at all there, look for the damage in the tracks in these areas here. Those are little areas that supply the current. If those aren't damaged, you probably nothing wrong with your circuit board.
Nothing wrong?
This is the cover. It's taken off. I removed the switches, the switch covers, and they are just simple little plastic things. Look like this. And they snap in on the top. Okay? Now, this right here is the control switch for the mirrors. And what happens if you want the passenger side mirror to move out or in? That's what this button does here, and it goes down. It actually fluctuates up and down. Same with this one, same as this one, same as this one. Now if you turn this upside down, you can see how these things, see how they move up and down? Okay. You might want to, while you have it apart, clean these or put a drop of oil on them so that they move very easily up and down. And this is the piece here that goes on top of that. And you can see all the little connections in there. Piece that drops down through the center. Okay? When you put that in there and you turn it over, you can see it sticking up here. And that piece can move around so that when your control switch on the top moves from point to point to point. What I'm saying is that this piece is a little difficult to get in and out, because make sure when you put it in, you can see the little slots down in there. That goes in there. And you put it back together, okay? Goes back down in there. And it won't fit perfect until you get it in the right spot. And we'll do that later in a minute. Okay, so you have a connection here. This is the switch you didn't have to take off. Okay? This switch moves back and forth with this. Okay. Now here's what is usually wrong with your control. I'm going to hit the light here so you can see it better. I'm going to move in a little bit. You see these little control pieces, the connections? See how it moves up, down, up. There. Down, up. Now mine are clean because I cleaned them already. But those, just from wear, there are little pieces of carbide in there. And they get dirty. And so the connection isn't correct. And so how I clean these is I used a little piece of 400 grit, I call emery paper. It's wet sandpaper, and you can stick it, you can open those up, whichever one you want to clean. This one is open. I'll stick the emery in there and just move it back and forth. Try to get the top and the bottom. Just do that. Okay? And another good thing to have is some of this, this is for cleaning electrical computer parts. It's a special cleaner. Perfect choice. You can get it at sometimes at Home Depot or any place that sells computers and stuff. It's not necessary to do this, but if you keep your laptop clean and everything and you have this, it's a good idea to put some on a little piece of shop rag like this, squirt it on there. Don't squirt it directly on the connections, and then you can move the emery paper or the paper back and forth in there too to clean them off. And go through around to each one. Here's another one, two more. You see, one way opens one way opens the other. Similar here, and clean them. And most likely that is the problem. You don't have to take nothing else apart. One here. Open dirty. On this side. You push down when you go like this to open this one, and you push down hard on that. That puts pressure on that, so you can get some pressure on the sandpaper to clean the grit off the top contact. It's these top contacts here that are most difficult to get. That's why when you put the sandpaper in there and then you press this way, it causes pressure on that. It's spring-loaded. Okay. Can you see the debris on the end of the paper from the top contact? Molding it down with lots of pressure, not too much, enough there. And I do the same with this one. And you do all of the contacts. Another thing when I'm all done cleaning them, you can get this duster. They're cans of oxygen, and they come with a long thing like that. And to get all the liquid and debris out after you're done cleaning, you take this and clean everything off and all the connections. Already have it apart, and what you do is you can take the Q-tip, and you see these little pieces on the top side. They're the ones that go up and down. You can pull those up and put a little bit of oil around them, not too much so it drips, and that'll make that system operate much more easily. Okay, and now that you've had the top cover part with the mirror module switch back together, this little rubber part might have fallen off because there's nothing that holds it in. You can see this little pin here and this little pin here. This is the bottom side, and these are the contacts here that come into contact with these parts here. And so you tip it over and stick these. This point here goes here, and this point here goes here, and it'll set in there nicely. And this is what it looks like when it's sitting in place. And if it falls out again when you're putting it back together, at least you know how to stick it back on there. Now, this is what happens when you're, if you take the top cover of this mirror switch out, this little piece in here will fall out when you go to tip it over and set it on there. So no matter if you took that off or not, you need to stick that little plastic piece back in there and push on it, holding the cover, the round cover on the top with your finger till it clicks, and it'll lock that piece in. And then you can set this back over on the top, and you can see the switches. I have already removed the little fancy switches that cover these, and you stick it, put it back over there on here, and you can see the places where it locks into place. Now here's that top round switch I was talking about for the mirrors. If you notice, there's some grease here, and you can see where the contacts are resting on here, and they slide back and forth on here. So what I did was I took this screwdriver here, and I moved that grease back over in here so it was covering the whole thing to make